So this watch is the latest smartwatch for Android users, the TicWatch Pro 5. And much like the previous TicWatches, it stacks the latest specs on board with the latest Qualcomm chip in here, which we don't see in other watches yet. It has the dual display, you're getting incredible battery life comparatively, and a couple other things up the sleeve of this watch. Now the TicWatch Pro 5, you might wonder what happened to the TicWatch Pro 4. Well, much like a lot of other watches, like Samsung for example, sometimes they skip from 3 to 5. That's what we do in tech these days. But before we get into the testing and a deeper analysis, when I opened this watch, and I've been using it for about a week now, my first impressions were, first of all, it has a large display, a pretty good screen to body ratio that feels nice when you're wearing it, which is great because so many other smartwatches for like 7 years in a row, it seemed like forever, had the same screen size and the same bezel size, and it's good to finally see a bigger display here. So you have that secondary display that saves on battery, but also it's been improved here. It's also a lot snappier. We've got the Qualcomm W5 Plus chip in here, which also gives you a claimed 80-hour battery life, and we'll show you the full interface. It's really nice. It's fast, it's smooth, and we have plenty of storage on here as well. The downside at first glance was that like the strap feels like a little bit cheap to me. It's not like the most comfortable, just a silicone strap, but 24 millimeters, super easy to swap that out. It's a pretty standard size. In addition, unlike all of the other TicWatches in the past, my biggest complaint with those, which is resolved here, is that they did not have a rotating bezel or a rotating crown. They didn't have anything that rotated, and Wear OS just feels like you need something that rotates to navigate through it. And now we have that. We have a rotating crown on the side, which is so nice to have that on a TicWatch. There's a lot more to like about this watch, but those were originally my first impressions. Now, let's kind of peel back a couple layers here, talk a little bit more about the physical design. TicWatch uses the two displays in a pretty unique way, and I really like this. So rather than having your main display as doing everything and then the low power display just only showing time, the low power display really has a lot of information, and if you rotate the crown, you can cycle through that information. So just when you lift up your wrist, you can cycle through and see quite a few different things, basically like what you'd expect on a Fitbit, like the My Day kind of stuff. But when you're working out, you can also do the same thing. You can have your main display show you some deeper analytics in your workout, and then the low power display shows you your pace or your time or whatever, your heart rate. And again, you can rotate the crown there and cycle through them. Now, when you lift your wrist, by default, it will always be showing the low power display. And when you tap the screen or press a button or something, it will then show you the regular display. This has a backlight that changes colors, and it can change colors based on, like, for example, when you're working out, if you're in a different heart rate zone, it'll be blue versus green versus red. So at first glance, it can just tell you what heart rate zone you're in. We have an aluminum case on the outside, Gorilla Glass on the front. We have some type of low carbon steel bezel on the top. Obviously doesn't rotate, but it looks nice and it feels nice. And I think the watch itself looks like a relatively nice TicWatch. Like, it's not a super plasticky one, but at the same time, it's not meant to be like a super high-end, ultra premium looking watch. It's kind of like nice in the middle where you can wear it while you're working out. It doesn't look weird, and you can kind of dress it up, and it also looks pretty nice then. Of course, on the right side, we have our two buttons. I was a little surprised we didn't have a third button. Now that we have that crown that's a button and it rotates, I was hoping for a bottom button as well. Regardless, we only have two buttons on here. The top button is essentially your recent apps. If you single press it, you can double press it for Google Pay. You can hold for your power settings. And then the crown, of course, you can rotate and get through the interface. From your watch face, you could scroll up and down to go to your notifications or up to your quick settings, or what I did in settings is change that so that when you rotate it, it goes through the tiles. And also press it, again, it's your home button, opens up the apps. You can double press for your most recent app. When you press and hold it though, kind of my first complaint here is that I didn't see Google Assistant. Like, I don't know why pressing and holding that doesn't open Google Assistant. That's like the logical thing to do there, but it's not there. This is running Wear OS 3.5, so you're getting a lot of the latest things from Google Wallet on here. It's turn-by-turn directions, and a lot of other things that are more supported since we've migrated to a kind of universal Wear OS 3. Oh, and one last thing you can do with the buttons is if you press them both at the same time, that is your screenshot.
All right, so let's get into an audio test, starting off with the speakers on this watch. I'm just calling the watch, so leave a comment and let me know what you think of this.
Unfortunately, if you turn it over to the back, we do have our whole health array sensor there. It has a bunch of health sensors. I'll mention what they are in a minute, but it has magnetic charging. I don't know why we're not going to wireless charging. I would love to be able to charge this just on a regular wireless charger without needing a specific Mobvoi charger, but regardless, that's what this has. Now, of course, some of the reasons you might be considering buying a TicWatch would be it solves a lot of problems that a traditional maybe Galaxy Watch or Fossil Watch might have, including like the battery life for one. This is claimed up to 80 hours of battery life, that's 3.5 days, and in 30 minutes of charging, you get 65%, which should theoretically give you 2 days. Now, that's not 3.5 total days in like some kind of weird power saving mode. They do have algorithms to save power, of course, but that should be generally with most regular use. And I'll show on screen here, like the results, I'm still running it right now. My battery test, I'll let you know how long it's lasting for me, but this does have the Qualcomm Snapdragon W5 Plus chip in here, which is claimed to be way faster, a lot smaller, and a lot more efficient than the old Snapdragon 4100, which it's weird to call that old. It seems like it wasn't even that long ago it started coming out. But this does have a lot of big improvements. Like you have more low power states on here. You have 3 low power islands for things like Wi-Fi. This also has 32 gigabytes of storage and 5 different GNSS networks, including GPS, Galileo, GLONASS, like, the normal 5. And it has Bluetooth 5.3 to connect to your phone, but you can also connect to earbuds with Bluetooth as well. And of course, we've got a blood oxygen sensor, heart rate, barometer, altimeter, compass, skin temperature, like the whole array of health sensors you would expect. So in this watch, pretty stacked, right? The next thing, it really comes down to software to see how well that's actually implemented. Because anybody can add a skin temperature or any of these other things. And while I really do like TicWatch, that's always been one of my complaints here. So on the bright side, I like that they play nicely with pretty much everybody. You can connect this to Strava and Google Fit and get your analytics pretty much anywhere you want. But by default, you will have the Mobvoi Health app, and that's how you set up this watch. That's what they do in Wear OS 3.5. Everyone kind of has their own app, but it's not like it's really not my favorite app. I don't really like how they organize everything. It feels like a lot of the features are like stratified across different apps in here. So for example, if I just go to the apps, we've got Mobvoi Privacy, Mobvoi Treadmill, One Tap Measurement, which is like a kind of quick synopsis of your health. It's got other things like Tic Barometer, Tic Breathe, Tic Care, Tic Compass, Tic Exercise, Tic Health. Like all these things kind of just keep going on. And I get that they're different features, but it just feels like kind of a clunky, like it doesn't feel like a nice software, and integration on your phone has never really been particularly my favorite. That brings me into the health sensors and tracking with this watch. We have 100 different workouts modes, which is way more than I would probably ever do, but they added some other cool things like recovery time. We have VO2 max. So if you're working out, you could potentially use this as a coach to help you plan your workouts and really go for a goal. But let's get into some tests now and see how the heart rate accuracy is, how the GPS accuracy, and some other things as well that are on this watch. So tracking the workouts here had both good and bad aspects. The good aspects were that it was very accurate, both the heart rate and the GPS I was very impressed with. But the bad side was that I hate the app and I hate the way it represents things. So if we just look at this cycling workout here, we can scroll down and look at the map, and the map is completely useless. You can't pinch, you can't zoom in, you can't do anything with this map other than see a really tiny zoomed out version of it. Now, how do I know it's accurate? Well, I tested the relative distances, which is not the best way to test accuracy of GPS, but it was matching the distance pretty well. And then moving on to the heart rate data, it was pretty difficult to export this data from the Mobvoi Health app, but you can see here, I really tried to trick this by doing intervals. Most watches really struggle with this, but this absolutely nailed it on almost every single interval, with one exception, and I was biking, so maybe the watch rotated a little bit, but for the most part, I was very, very impressed by just how accurate the heart rate sensors and the GPS were on this watch. But again, the data representation in the app was really just trash. I would recommend using Strava or literally anything else to track your workouts so you can utilize this watch. So let's talk about the pros and cons, starting off with the downsides here. There is no wireless charging. It's $350, which I think is pretty steep. It is limited to Android only, not really a surprise there, so that's not really a drawback. And the Mobvoi Health app honestly is kind of mediocre considering the competition like Garmin and a lot of other ones out there. But the positives here, you're getting an incredible battery life in a full-blown smartwatch, not some kind of stripped down like semi-smart fitness watch like Garmin watches. This is a legitimate Wear OS watch that's giving you like 3.5, maybe even more days of battery life just using it normally. And so that's a big positive. In addition, I like how they utilized that second display. Improving that over the previous versions makes it feel like they really are innovating here. They're moving forward, and they're doing stuff that most other watches just aren't doing. And of course, we can't forget that unlike Samsung, they're not locking you into an ecosystem. You don't have to get a Samsung phone to get the most out of this watch. It works with pretty much any Android phone out there. So overall, who is this watch for? Well, I would say it's really great for anybody looking for really the latest specs on a watch. You want a snappy watch with a lot of storage that has a decent battery life, unlike most other watches that get 1 day out of their battery. This getting 3.5, I think, is a big positive. Not everyone's going to get the full 3.5 days, but again, the second display on here should be helping with that a lot. This is going to be great for anybody looking to do some semi-casual working out. By that, I mean you're not training for a specific event, not a race or anything, so the time that, like, the accuracy doesn't matter that much, but enough that you can see how well you're working out and kind of track your general progress. It's not going to be ideal for anybody who has smaller wrists. This is a relatively large watch, so I think that kind of rules out probably a lot of women. Unfortunately, there's not a second size here, but that's my take on the TicWatch Pro 5. Overall, I'm excited about the innovations here. I think there's a lot to like about this watch and a lot that I really hope other companies like Google Pixel and Samsung Galaxy copy from this watch to get that longer battery life, that snappier, like everything on the inside. It just feels like a faster, more advanced smartwatch. So if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'm Mike O'Brien, and I'll see you in the next one.